Welcome to Shelbyville, Kentucky to the Bulleit Distilling Company Visitor Experience. My name is Melissa Rift and I'm going to be walking y'all through our tour experience, starting with a little bit of brand history. Now, Bulleit was founded in 1987 by our founder, Tom Bulleit, who left a long-time law practice to disrupt the whiskey industry with his bold take on a high rye Kentucky bourbon recipe, inspired by an old Bulleit family recipe. Now, over the years, we've grown exponentially, becoming one of the fastest growing bourbon brands in the United States. And one of the keys to our success has been our work with folks behind the bar, bartenders creating wonderful craft cocktail recipes using our bourbons and our Bulleit rye whiskey. We also happen to have a great portfolio for things to drink neat and on the rocks. So any way you want to enjoy it, Bulleit is your good go-to. We're going to walk you guys through our tour, so we're going to hop on the bus and head over to the distillery right now. On our short drive to the distillery, I want to point out a few things about our facility. One of our core ethos at the Bulleit Distilling Company is sustainability. We're actually riding right now in one of our propane-powered buses, which is a great example of our commitment to reducing emissions and the effects of our carbon footprint. And if you look out the window, you can see our array of solar panels, the first in Shelby County, which subsidize our energy usage back to the county power grid. We have also set up a unique water stewardship system to ensure the distillery has a minimal impact on our local water source. Bulleit also recently began construction on a new distillery site in Lebanon, Kentucky, about an hour from here, and that's going to be Diageo's first carbon neutral site. That means we're going to be using 100% renewable energy. So our first stop on the tour, we're going to be talking about grains. And in order to make really good, high-quality bourbon, you have to have high-quality ingredients. And we just so happen to be situated perfectly here in Shelbyville, Kentucky, to be sourcing all of our corn from within a 30-mile radius of our distillery, which is really good community-focused agriculture, keeping with our sustainability message, and it gives us great, fresh, locally sourced corn. Now, by definition, corn does have to be at least 51% of your recipe to make bourbon, and our mash bill is going to be about 68% corn, 28% rye, giving us our nice high spice, and 4% malted barley. Now, a great way to create some variety and complexity to your flavor is to not just have one mash bill, we actually use two. Both are considered a high rye, and it's going to give us some nice balance in how much spice shines through, how much we can balance that with some fruit-forward flavors, and really give us a nice, well-rounded sip of bourbon every time you open a bottle of Bulleit. Now, once we get all of these grains from local farms, we're going to be milling them down in our hammer mill, and our hammer mill is going to turn it to a nice cornmeal type consistency, really increasing the surface area and making it easier for us to cook. Now, what we've been talking about so far is our recipe for Bulleit bourbon. Bulleit rye is actually going to be very different than that. We don't use any corn to make Bulleit rye. It's 95% rye, 5% malted barley, 0% corn, giving us even more spice coming from the rye, a little bit drier of a flavor profile, perfect to sit in a wonderful crafted Manhattan. Now that we've talked a little bit about our three grains that we're using, our corn, our rye, and our barley, the next element we're going to talk about is yeast, and we'll head down the hallway to take a look at our yeast library. So now that we've talked about our mash bill and the breakdown of our grains, how we're getting sweetness from corn and spiciness from rye, we're going to cook all of those grains down in the mashing process, which really just allows us to express all of the sugars so that we can feed those sugars to our yeast. Now, yeast is one of the most fascinating parts of the alcohol production process because yeast is going to be eating all of those sugars and in turn producing a byproduct that is a low-proof alcohol that we'll call a distiller's beer. Now again, if we used one mash bill and one yeast strain and tried to create the same flavor profile in every single barrel of whiskey, it'd be really difficult to achieve and rather non-complex. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to take a yeast library of 5 yeast strains in combination with our 2 mash bills to create 10 overall flavor profiles. That means 10 recipes for 10 unique distillates that are going to be combined together to create what you know as Bulleit bourbon. Now, as you can see, these yeast profiles range in flavor from earthier flavors like slight leather and leather banana to really fruit-forward flavors like strawberry and jackfruit to a little bit of buttery creaminess with that fruity creamy. All of those are going to be contributing to the flavor profile of Bulleit, and all of them are going to give us a lot of complexity. So the next part of the process is going to talk about how we ferment these into a distiller's beer and then eventually run them through our column still to create a high-proof alcohol. We'll go there now. So now that we've talked through every part of the process, starting with the grains, mashing them down, combining with our yeast library into fermentation, we're going to be fermenting all of those products into what we call a distiller's beer, which again is kind of a low-proof alcohol. And to become a whiskey, we have to distill it into a higher proof alcohol using our beautiful column still. Now a column still is like a giant cylinder. Ours is 52 feet tall. And inside of it, we're going to be boiling the alcohol until it vaporizes, separating it from water and the rest of those spent grains, sending that alcohol vapor to the top of the still and the rest of that waste matter to the bottom. Now we're going to take all of that stillage and recycle it. We're going to be sending it back to local farmers to feed their livestock. And the alcohol vapor that's rising to the top is going to be sent to a doubler, which is a different piece of equipment where we do our second round of distillation. And that's really just going to be kind of a polishing run, really making sure we've got our flavor where we want it. And at the end of that doubling process, we get what we call a moonshine or a white dog whiskey. Now again, we've got our 10 different recipes, and we're going to be distilling all 10 of those recipes into a distillate separately, sending them to barrels and into our warehouses here on site to age. All right, so the last part of our process is going to be aging, and to do that, we're going to be using brand new charred oak barrels, which is a great opportunity to mention Bulleit's recent partnership with a company called American Forests. We've vowed to plant 1 million trees across the country with the aim of maintaining and restoring America's oak forests that contribute so wonderfully to the aging process for our product. Now, aging inside of the barrel is going to bring us a lot of flavor and 100% of our color, and a lot of that's going to be coming from the char you see inside the barrels. We use a level 4 char, which is the highest level char they have to offer in the industry, bringing a lot of vanilla and caramelization to the game. We're going to put our white dog inside of these barrels, set them in a non-temperature controlled aging warehouse, and let Mother Nature take its course. Here in Kentucky, we get really hot, humid summers, really cold, snowy winters, and those temperatures are going to be forcing expansion into the oak in the summertime and then contraction back into the middle of the barrel in the wintertime, over and over and over again for several years, giving us a lot of flavors like vanilla, caramel, tobacco, and fruit, balancing with that spiciness from our mash bill and that variety from our yeast strains. All 10 of these recipes aging in our warehouses here on site and eventually combining into a perfect sip of Bulleit bourbon